We didn't make a lot of money in the bookkeeping, and I just sort of left it there, and it was sort of ticking along, whereas the consulting made good money, the training made good money, because we charged for, big dollars for what we're doing sort of thing. But the bookkeeping, people didn't want to pay you to do data entry. So I didn't make a lot of money, and I think I was talking to Deb at one of the conferences, and I decided to take on the pure bookkeeping. And from there, you can see, I could show you numbers. We started making money almost straight away.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a great one. Our guest is located all the way in Balcatta, which is a suburb of Perth in Western Australia. She is a partner with Carbon Bookkeeping, which won the 2017 National Bookkeeping Firm of the Year at the Australian Accounting Awards, which is pretty exciting. We're going to dig deep into that today. As well, she has a great list of individual qualifications, including a Cert 4 in mortgage brokering, bookkeeping and workplace training and assessment, and certifications in Xero, MYOB, Calxca, and Workflow Max. Cheryl Knight, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's great to be here.
Thank you for being here. And I'm sure it's, a crazy hour or way on the other side of the world from where we are here.
My eyes are a little bit tired.
Yes. Well, based on all the things that you've accomplished and the awards, I'm sure we're catching at a time where, you're not going a million miles an hour, because it sounds like you're one of those types of people that just absolutely goes full on every single day.
Yeah, every day. And I'm at work pretty much, yes.
Beautiful.
Trying to get home is the hardest bit. Trying to finish on time.
That's right. That's right. And you've got a beautiful place where you live, which I'm sure you want to get home and to enjoy the beautiful area of Western Australia.
Yeah. Beaches are lovely here.
They are. So let's start off with letting our listener know about yourself and your career journey leading up to where you are today.
Rightio. I like to, because we do teach bookkeepers as well. We've got a training centre, and I do explain this a bit. So I like to always start with before I was a bookkeeper, because a lot of it is making a decision to become a bookkeeper. And I'd had my kids, and I felt like for my second job, after I've had a break and had kids, I should really be able to pick what I want to do, because I'm getting a bit older now, a bit more mature. And I really liked working with numbers, and I like computers. So I chose bookkeeping, and it's great because the second, before kids' careers compared to after kids' careers, I just love my job. So it was a really good choice. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So that was, I think I started back in 1999. It was the year before GST was brought in to Australia. So it was, I think at that point, we sucked in a lot of bookkeepers because the GST legislation brought in a lot more work at the end, or the desk of a bookkeeper. So I suppose I got propelled in with all that GST legislation and got a lot of work very fast at that point, and a lot of training as well, because everyone was trying to upskill on the GST tax laws. So that was a really good time to join. I was just very lucky. So we mainly started with MYOB software a long time ago, and eventually ended up training in the classroom for MYOB. Loved training in the classroom, loved businesses, loved people, loved to teach people. So eventually I set up my own training centre, and a couple of years after I set up my own training centre, the Cert 4 in bookkeeping became a registered course in Australia. So we started teaching that, and that got very busy, because then, I don't know how long your listeners have been in bookkeeping, but the Cert 4 in bookkeeping came out in about 2007 and 2010. After many, many years of threatening, the government did bring in the legislation to do the BAS agent legislation. So it was a really busy time for us getting to upskill everybody at that point, I suppose.
I can imagine.
And how far do you want me to go?
Well,
That's about
I think
2010.
I think it's interesting. I mean, the certification for bookkeepers in North America, it is not it's not a licensed profession at this point. I mean, there are bodies that create certification, like ICB USA and ICB Global and the IPBC here in Canada have a designation, but it's not like Australia. Australia is ahead of the game from that perspective, but it can hear that whilst you've gone through these massive changes from the GST and as well, an industry shakeup, if you will, with the certification, right? Yeah. And so, the training organization got very busy. And then where did it go from there?
Well, I suppose all through that, I also had bookkeepers doing bookkeeping. And so we had 3 sections, the training, we had bookkeepers doing bookkeeping, and we had what we call consultants. So those are the ones that would go out, set up businesses in softwares and specialise in softwares and accounting. So I'd look back on it, and there was it was a busy time setting up the RTO and doing the training and everything. And I had a little bit of paper in my hand where I'd written, I think it probably around about 2006, I wrote where I wanted to be. And I got every single one of those things that I wanted on that bit of paper. And I wish I would have kept it. I don't know where it is now, but I got everything. And then things just sort of got a bit boring for me after that. We started moving from MYOB into Xero. My bookkeeping wasn't making a lot of money, and that's when I just got closer to Deb and pure bookkeeping. So I had this big target to become a black belt in the pure bookkeeping, which do you guys do that as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
You have those? Yeah.
Absolutely. But explain it, because the listener may not know what a black belt means in the pure bookkeeping world. So go ahead and explain that. I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
Well, because I've sort of flicked through the bookkeeping. We didn't make a lot of money in the bookkeeping, and I just sort of left it there, and it was sort of ticking along, whereas the consulting made good money, the training made good money, because we charged for, big dollars for what we're doing sort of thing. But the bookkeeping people didn't want to pay you to do data entry. So I didn't make a lot of money, and I think I was talking to Deb at one of the conferences, and I decided to take on the pure bookkeeping. And from there, you can see, I could show you numbers. We started making money almost straight away, because a lot of it was me ringing her when I couldn't understand what was in the manuals and things, and her saying, let's, do it this way, do it that way, etc. She was just awesome. And with the 7 Secrets seminar, I think you do there, you hand out a bit of paper on it. And so I had that on my wall in my office, and there's a bit of paper. It's got the different colours you go to. And I think black belt is where you've got a full-time second in charge, and they're running a lot of the business, and you're trying to step out a little bit. And I can't remember, it was about 5 to 8 staff, I think it was, under the bookkeeping. And it probably had a sort of gross margin you should have, or maybe I got that gross margin off Deb, I can't remember. But that was my target, really, was to get there at that point. So got all the sections going well, got Xero rolled out, which was a bit of a change. You guys use QBO over there a lot, don't you?
QBO is absolutely growing for sure. In the last probably 36 months, it's taken a huge uptick.
Yeah, we've got QBO here now too. So we started, everything was MYOB, and now all of a sudden, coming to these later years, we have to know every software out there pretty much. And you try not to know everyone, but you do need to know the core ones. And for us, it's MYOB, Xero and QBO. We're just starting to do quite a lot with QBO as well. So, we rolled out QBO. And like I said, I think it was about 17 years into my business, and I teach bookkeepers and teach them about business. And there's this thing that we put up on the projector or on the whiteboard saying, this is a startup business, this is a growing business. And then you get to the mature business and it's got this flat line. And that's really scary. And then I suddenly realised I'm on this flat line, I'm on this business flat line where you have to do something, or the next stage from there is down. I don't know if you've ever seen that, Michael. Have you seen those graphs?
Yes, I have, actually.
So when you've had a business for 17 years and you realise I'm a mature business, my next stage is down, which is really scary.
It's kind of a funny way of looking at it.
If you don't do something quick, my next stage is down. So I started looking at the different ways that I could bring fresh blood into my business, I suppose. And one of them was to get your staff members to buy in, so bookkeepers that I had, see if they want to take something into the business. A lot of my staff were at-home mums that did part-time work. So I didn't get a lot of feedback from there that they were willing to step up at all or invest any money at all into the business. So that's where we ended up merging in 2016 with Carbon Bookkeeping. So we merged. So I brought on 2 partners.
Beautiful. Well, tell us a little bit about that journey in merging with Carbon.
Yeah, that's a whirlwind, definitely. My business is quite big, and I think, for a bookkeeping business, it's about $1 million turnover, including the training company. So my business is quite big. Yeah, I know, but then we merged with a company that's probably 6 times our size.
Whoa.
So I thought I was going fast until you step on that bus.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's been but they're 2 lovely guys. I don't know if you've met them, Jamie and Nathan. They're 2 lovely guys. They're very patient. The other thing I knew is I sort of need people that are not the same as me. When you bring partners into your business, you want somebody that has a different personality, has a different outlook on things, or else it's just 2 of the same thing and you're not going to get anything better. And, they're 2 very different personalities to me, but whereas we still get on quite well. So, and they really know their stuff. So it's been really good. Yeah.
That's excellent. Well, I really think it's exciting to have someone like yourself on the podcast who has grown their business to over $1 million. I mean, that is a remarkable achievement. And the blueprint that you're speaking of, the Pure Bookkeeping Business Blueprint, for the listener, you can check this out at purebookkeeping.com/blueprint. And we'll have links in the show with all of this as well in the show notes. But to go from where many of the market would be in probably below $100,000, not probably, definitely below $100,000 in revenue, and you're up over $1 million, you're a black belt. What do you think it takes in order to be someone who's gone way beyond the average and grown such a large business? What do you think is necessary to do that?
I've got a few tips that I would say. I mean, a lot of these people use themselves already. I'm sure a lot of your listeners already do these things. You're always going to make mistakes. I don't really think they're a bad thing. I just learn from my mistakes, and you sort of pick yourself up and go, oh, well, that wasn't a good idea, and change it really quickly. If you see it's wrong, change it, fix it. I treat everybody with respect, treat my staff members, treat my clients, treat my suppliers, treat everybody with respect. Everybody has a bad day. So they treat us the same way, I suppose. But I think a lot of the growth in my business has been from, and I don't know where I learned these things, I go to a lot of seminars and conferences, and I do a lot of, even when Pure come to Perth now, I still probably, 1 out of 2 times I'll go and sit through that again, even though I've been probably 10 times with Deb and sat through and listened, and Deb and Pete. You pick things up. So you learn things by going out and talking to people and reading things and listening, going to conferences, etc. But I looked for changes in the market, and I think one of the big growth areas was, I was lucky I got in with the GST, and then with the training, it was a whole change in the industry. With Xero, that was, I had to basically pin my staff down, whereas we usually work as a team, and they sort of go, oh, that sounds like a good idea, and they give me ideas too. But with that one, changing from MYOB to Xero, I had to basically pin them down and say, you will do this now. And I've never had to do that before with them. That Xero was taking over the market, so that was a new area. It's just basically having to move quickly when things move quickly in the industry, I think.
It's interesting that you say you've been to the 7 Secrets seminar close to 10 times. And there's always, I have a graph when I'm speaking to bookkeepers, I'm talking about the mindset of a bookkeeping owner and an entrepreneur, if you will. And they're always learning. And they're looking at things from almost a child's mind. A child's mind is one that it doesn't know everything. It knows it doesn't ever know everything. So everything is, it's like it's looking at a child. I have just a little over a 2-year-old. Everything is fresh. It's, look underneath, over top, through, poke it in all sorts of different spots. I have no idea what this is, but I'm really curious to know what it is. And I think that's a sign of either a successful or future successful business person, because, for you who's got a business that's successful, it could be really easy to say, you know what, I know it all. And I have there's a lot of people I come across, bookkeepers come across that actually look at it that way. It's like, I have $100,000 business and I'm doing everything right. I'm successful. And for them, that is successful. And there's nothing wrong with that. However,
nothing wrong with being happy with what you're doing.
That's right. Right. And so, but yet here's yourself who's going and doing education that you've already been to, but it's like, what am I going to learn next? What might I not know? How, a new perspective of something. Someone's going to say something. You mentioned Debbie, talking to Debbie and being, somewhat mentored or masterminding with Debbie, if you will, to sort of push each other in new directions, which has lifted you up. And here, you have a very, very successful business. So I think there's something to be gleaned from that. It's to stop. And this is for the listeners, to stop and every now and then, because we're adults, right? We're going through life. If we treated everything like we were children, our minds would probably explode. But it's not a bad idea to stop and say, hey, what might I be missing here? And look at things from a new perspective. I just love that. And thank you for sharing that. It's a great, I think, to do for everyone today is just to stop and think, what might I not be seeing? Step back a little bit and look at yourself, look at your business from a different perspective.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if they can't find a mentor, if there's another bookkeeper, not somebody with the same personality as you, but somebody that has a bit of a different outlook on things, you'll be two half people make a whole, another bigger person together by teaching each other.
Absolutely.
But, a mentor is always good too.
Yeah, I said mentor and mastermind, because now mastermind would be more of what you're saying with a bookkeeper, right? It's that you're around other people who want to progress. And it's not that everybody listening should think, oh, I want to build $1 million business. That's not what it is. It's about what is it that you do want, and then go and hang out with people who are moving in a similar direction. Often people are looking ahead of them and they're looking behind them. But what about people that are going right next to you, moving in the same direction? Those are very valuable perspectives that can be gleaned. And so, yeah, finding another bookkeeper. The Successful Bookkeeper Facebook group is incredible. I see the conversations happening on there online. Now, this is digital and you're not there personally with them. And I think it is important to be in the same space as people at times, but connecting with people online is a really great first step. And build relationships.
Those online chat groups, just so much comes up there. And it's one of those, how nowadays people are learning out of bite-sized information. Every time you read one of those comments on one of your industry chat lines, it's just a bite-sized piece of information that your brain can take in and process. So you'd always be learning, I think, from those things. It's
incredible. It's incredible. And just to search, I know for me, in some of the groups, I'll just search something. I have a question, and I know that group, there's, one group that I go into often around business, there's 10,000 members. I know there's probably 1,000 people in there that are mastering what I'm trying to figure out, and I just simply search it, and a conversation will come up, and it's like you say, it's a bite size, it's a solution, or it's a multi-perspective approach to my problem. They're not all answering exactly the same, but there's 3 or 4 different opinions around the way to go, and it's very powerful. I mean, never in our history have we had something that powerful that, to tap into information, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So getting back to your carbon, now you won the 2017 National Bookkeeping Firm of the Year at the Australian Accounting Awards. Tell us a little bit about that award and what had you win it?
Well, it's something that you put an application in. I suppose all awards do that, and they sort of gauge it. So different. You just have to give your best answers, and they gauge from that who to choose. I suppose it's in amongst the accounting awards. So now they've got a bookkeeping section in there, but I think it's more about a lot of Carbon is, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to merge with them, is that they offer package deals to their clients. So instead of charging per hour, and I was just so sick of charging per hour, so instead of charging per hour, we offer them a package deal. So we say, what tasks do you want us to do? And from our experience, those tasks are going to cost us this much. So then we say, okay, well, this is how much it's going to cost you per week. And they go, right, I like that amount, let's go with it. So it just really lets you support your clients in the way that they want to be supported. I suppose it was growth as well. We had to report our growth because we grow continuously because our database are on a fixed amount per week. So as long as we look after them, keep them, then the new ones that come on are growing our turnover every single day. So as long as you don't lose your clients and you keep gaining new ones, because they don't get this invoice at the end of the month or whatever and go, wow, how come it cost me so much? They just know exactly how much it's going to cost them, and they tend to stay on longer with us, and they tend to then come back to us to ask for more tasks because they've swallowed the amount, they're happy with the amount, is settling into their budget quite well. We can afford a bit more. So maybe you could give us end of month reports instead of quarterly or something like that. So we grow our existing client turnover, plus we gain new clients. So we're continually growing. I suppose that's probably part of why we got the award. But it's also giving back. I mean, Carbon, we put away 1% of our turnover. It goes towards a donations fund. And that goes towards whatever charity we think's a viable charity, I suppose. Yeah.
And so that's amazing. Amazing.
I like that part of it. I like that. The business that I've merged with have been around for a long time, so they've got some really great strategies that they're using and things that they already have put in place, and we just get to jump on board and go, yeah, we like that. It's a cool idea. Massages on a Tuesday? Okay, then.
Beautiful. That's amazing. And it's really large group, Carbon, in that you have locations all over the place, a whole bunch of people working, many different attributes of business. What do you think, it's very different than what the typical bookkeeping firm would look like, business would look like. What do you notice about from when you were working independently to then working in a group like this? What were the big differences that you saw?
What I saw originally was I thought my office was really cool, actually. And then the two boys came in to have a look at my office. This is while we were still talking, and they were like, oh, it's okay. And I'm thinking, well, what's wrong with my office? And you go into their office and it's really I don't know how to explain it. It's well set out. It's quite quirky. Everything they do is a little bit quirky. It does look very professional. Everything looks very professional. All of their packages are on, glossy flyers, glossy pamphlets, so you can give the client in their hand, this is our levels. Do you want to pick A, B or C? I don't know if any of your bookkeepers have read about it, but giving people a choice, they're more likely to pick one of them than to just say no, thank you. So they've got a full-time marketer basically. So that marketing person presents stuff so that people will like it. When you get to that size, you have other things that are really helping out. Yeah,
that's, absolutely. To have a full-time marketer working on your business, that's incredible.
Yeah.
But as well, I would think from your own mindset, going from working in your independent business to working in a group like this, there would have been some differences or things that you may have, were there any challenges that you faced when you did this?
It was really I'm a very trusting person. I'm very open to new ideas. So a lot of it was finding out the way they do things, and we're still finding out how they're doing things because we're still trying to run $1 million business inside a $7 million business and still trying to keep our clients happy and not let them see there's changes happening in the background. but we're busy changing towards their procedures. And, some of the comments that have come back from my staff, some of my very professional staff, is we just love how automated and organised they are with everything. They've got checklists for everything. They've got procedures for everything, because I think at that size you have to have all that. And we did have it. We did have procedures, but they're just not as many, 10 times as many procedures as we had.
Yeah, the more people you have, the more functions that you're really tweaking out. You could have a whole systems and process documentation for the marketing, the sales. It just, the bigger the company gets, the more systems and process that needs to be documented, because you have more people doing different things. So that's very interesting.
They've got procedures for onboarding a client, and they've got procedures for running a payroll. They've got procedures for, I always had a checklist for preparing a lodgement to the tax office, but they've got procedures for that and procedures for all the other tasks that the bookkeepers do as well.
Beautiful.
So we're just learning those one at a time, whereas we would, I know a lot of bookkeepers work by themselves. So my bookkeepers, it was a true business because the bookkeepers would do things the way they're told to do them. But, when it came to how to pay superannuation, they would just figure that out and do it themselves. Whereas under Carbon, they have procedures for as many things as they can have.
Beautiful. It's amazing looking at the time how fast these interviews go, and I have probably a dozen more questions, but I'm really curious, to go back to a little bit of the growth of a business, right? You're in Carbon. It's an incredible business. It's growing. You've won awards for your growth and for the type of business that you are. And just looking at your website, and I recommend the listener go have a look at their website. It's beautiful. It's a textbook as to how a website should look for any business, really. But, tips on scaling a bookkeeping firm. What would you say if someone's listening and saying, you know what, I want to grow to be a black belt, or I want to go beyond where I am today? What would you say to them? What would you recommend they do?
It's so funny you said that, because I've got one more little thing I had jotted down on a bit of paper in front of me, and I was thinking, I'm not going to get a chance to say that one. And then you asked that exact question. Yeah, this is
perfect.
So I think it's more that because a lot of the listeners will probably be the one-man band bookkeeping firm, by themselves, and they want to be a black belt. So it's more from the beginning, how do you get staff on board? Because at the moment it's just you sitting there doing the job, but you want to bring a staff on board and you get really busy, you want to hand it to somebody else. So bit of a process, if you want to write it down, it's, do it yourself, document what you're doing, write a procedure about what you're doing, or even do some checklists so that you can tick off everything you've done. So I used to create a checklist. I'd sit in a position of a client, just me and the client, me doing a job as a bookkeeper. I would write down what I did. I'd write a checklist, and then the next time I sat there next week, if I went there weekly, I would check the checklist and make sure it's thorough and that it covers everything that I did. As if I was a staff member, I would sit there and tick it off myself like my staff member was going to do it. And then once I thought the procedures were right, then I will bring a staff member in, and I'll get that staff member to sit while I stood behind them, and I'd get them to go through the checklist and do the tasks. So then basically I'm telling them this is the way I want you to do it, because it's on a bit of paper in front of you and you're ticking it off as you're doing it. So they're doing the checklist. Watch your staff member do it. I had so many bookkeepers over the years come to me crying, saying, my staff member has let me down completely because they have made such a mess of this client. And I'm thinking, well, you've actually let them down. I don't say that because it's a bit rude. I say you've let them down because you haven't checked what they've been doing when they first started with you. And if you don't communicate what you actually want by going back to them, you can't just sit down with them once and say, here, do that thing, and expect that they're going to remember it. I suppose through the training centre, I know that people only remember 1/3 of what you tell them ever. You have to tell them at least 3 times. So then you have to go back and check that they know how to read the checklist and how to do the checklist. You have to go back a few times and check that they're doing what you expect. And then you have to take a look at their data file and check everything they've entered and make sure it is how you want it, and feedback like within the first couple of weeks. Not after 3 months. You need to let them know straight away, or else they're just going to be gobsmacked because they would have tried their hardest and you haven't picked it up early. and they're going to be upset, you're going to be upset. But I suppose that's the way you do it, is just put yourself in the spot, write yourself a procedure, put your staff in the spot, keep going back to the staff, make sure they're doing the right thing, don't expect to pick it up overnight. And that's the way you grow, is every time you put a staff member in a spot, you're freeing yourself up to go get another client and to grow your business a little bit further. And that's all that I ever did, is just sit in a position myself, then get somebody else to sit in the position and check. You have to check that they're doing what you expect them to do, because guaranteed they're a different person than you and they're going to do it totally different than what you thought. I don't know if that helps.
It totally helps. I think there's a couple of things to point out inside of that, is that hiring people does not solve a problem. Hiring the right people and having them do exactly what it is you want them to do solves the problem. That people are trying to grow their business. Why? They want to make more money. You want to make more money, you need more clients. You need to service those clients. So people get busy, and then they think having a staff member is going to make things better and give them more time, and often it does not. So that's
takes
where
longer, at the beginning. In the beginning or forever, unless they do things that you've just said, which is talking about management. I mean, building your business and having systems and process in your business, and then managing and ensuring that process is being followed to the standards that you have as a business owner. Otherwise, if you let them go and just, I hire someone and they're going to do the work, it's not going to go that way. I mean, it might go that way about as many times as you'd see a unicorn jump by, right? But, it's going to not likely go that way. Everything needs to have checks and balances. And so it's something to think. It's not a bad thing. It's just the way that people are. People will do it the way they'll figure it out. If you're not giving them the solution or the process or the journey or the steps to take, they'll figure it out on their own. And guess what? It's not likely to be different than yours.
Very different. Very different. So that then leads to just that, understanding what people are doing and checking in with them and making sure that your business is doing what it is that you want it to do. And you're a clear demonstration of that. And it's, it was just yesterday I saw a post on one of the groups, and it said, how I want to make my business passive. I want to have, I just want this business to, make money without me. And I thought, wow, a long way to go there's very few businesses where you cannot have somebody involved in your business, some input, and it's possible. Everything's possible, but it's such a leap, to even be asking that question. Such a leap. There's so many other foundational things that you've just mentioned that need to be done before ever possible to even consider that. And I mean, pure bookkeeping, we have systems and documentation. I mean, that's what it is. And maybe you can share a little bit about how you integrated that into your own business. But if you don't go and implement those things and follow those and train and teach people those systems, they're useless. They're absolutely useless.
Yeah. I came across Deb after I'd been running my business for probably 8 to 10 years. And so we already had some procedures. So starting to roll out hers was they knew there was procedures, and all my staff knew that we had procedures. So I suppose when you gave them a different procedure, it was just slightly different than ours, and they were sort of used to it. But if I do say this to all my bookkeeping students, if you can start up with Pure really early, because I wasted a lot of time writing procedures, and I could have just, if I knew back then, gone back onto Pure Bookkeeping and used hers from the start, because it does take time to write them, a lot of time. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Also that to do with staff, Pure has that great skills assessment test, which was one of the first things I instigated, because, when you're watching over new people and checking that they're doing what you said, that's, I suppose, if you are watching them carefully, you can see straight away if they're not going to work as well. But the best thing you can do is to make sure they've got the skills that you need at least before they start up. And those skills tests were really good.
Beautiful. Well, it's just an interesting perspective because I'm sure there's listener listening and, has a business and it's working just like the people that I spoke of earlier who said, my business is going along great. Your business, would have been very easy for you to say, oh, you know what? I already have systems. I don't need other systems. But you took a look and then you integrated other systems, different systems, pieces, parts, bits to augment what it was you were already doing. What's the mindset? What's the thinking behind that? How come you were able to see that when so many others are not?
I don't know. I think through training, some people are open-minded, some people are closed. And I don't know if you're born like that or what happens, but having an open mind, I think it's always a benefit because you can then do whatever you want to do and progress to wherever you want to be by learning. And if you think you know it all, there's no way. A lot of the reason I did the merger with Jamie and Nathan is because they have things that I don't know, and I've learned so much from them. You just keep learning all the time, I think.
I think that's the theme of this episode is to be a learner and it's not a lifelong learner really, but there's a great saying that goes, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Is that the way it goes? I always butcher these sayings, but when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and sometimes you're ready for something and sometimes you're not. You've just built an incredible business. You're on to something completely new and you hit that plateau and it's going to go down or it was going to go straight up and you're going straight up. It's been so much fun having a conversation with you today, Cheryl. Can you share more, like if people wanted to learn more about you or want to work with you or get involved somehow, what's the best way for them to do that?
Did you say your market's just America or is it both?
We have listeners all over the world and just about, we're on every continent, maybe not Antarctica, but we have listeners signing up and going in and, we've got all sorts of free resources and we've got the Successful Bookkeeper book that we give away for free. And so we see where people are in the world and I'm blown away. I mean, just about, every single continent, all over all these different countries. So a lot of listeners in Australia, but as well, mostly the North American market.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit hard to deal with that sort of market, but I'm only in the Australian market. I'm working through one of the bookkeeping associations and becoming a mentor through them. So people in Australia that have started a bookkeeping business and they want to become a BAS agent and make lodgements under their own name. So that's where I work directly with them and just check what they're doing and make sure they're doing it correctly and give them my advice, I suppose, on what they're doing there. But that would probably only be for the Australian market.
Yeah, that would be for sure.
That's my next venture. Well, I've sort of qualified for all that. I just need to get it on my website.
Beautiful. Well, that's exciting. And I think, and for those, perhaps we can put a link to your LinkedIn profile for those that are, want to be black belts or want some mentoring or training. They can connect with you as well. And we'll have all of those links in our show notes. Yeah,
for sure. Sounds good.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Michael.
That wraps another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.